This is Mary Harris from Paper Crow. Today I am going to be teaching you how to make this mini book. I'm going to flip through it real quick just so you can see what we're going to do. This has a clip binding, so you can open it and close it and change out the pages so you can add into it later. It has a wood-based cover and back. I've used metal clips on the pages that I've put in so that they won't rip easily. And I've used it to bundle pages into signatures into this tiny book. And here's the back so you can see. All right, well, let's get started. The first thing I want to do is prep some materials. I usually will prep for multiple projects at the same time, so I might do paper all at once or get the backs ready for multiple books. For this book, this is from Michael's. I'm sure you can find it at places like Hobby Lobby and other big art stores. They're just pre-cut, rounded, square. This is a 5x5 piece of wood. We're also going to be using Tim Holtz's ring binders, but you can find these in multiple brands, and even Temu sells them. They are different sizes, so you know, they don't have necessarily a set width between the different clips. So having a standard hole puncher might not work. In this case, it doesn't match the hole puncher that I have, so we're going to individually punch the holes. I also have papers that I've pre-dyed to age them, and we've done some stamping. We'll do a little bit today. You're going to need a tool to cut the wood. Some people might have something fancier, but today I'm just going to use a regular box cutter. To cut the fabric for the cover, I use a rolling cutter, but you can use scissors. I have a couple different types of hole punches that I use to both punch the holes and put the clips in to secure the edges of the holes. This is a bigger style, so you can do book bindings with them. You can put big sheets in them. So this gets used every once in a while when I'm doing a bigger project. Because we're gluing wood, you're going to want to have a couple clips. There are various different versions of that. You can even use a hair clippy if you have those hanging around. And I use a corner punch for making it look a little bit more finished. We're going to need some basic quilting cotton fabric. We're going to put a lot of bling on it, so it doesn't necessarily have to have a pattern. This one just happens to. And just a mix of different laces that kind of go with the style that you're looking to do. I went ahead and pre-painted one side and the edges of one of the boards, and we're going to use 2 more 5x5 boards. So for one book you're going to need 3. The reason we paint one is because it does get exposed here. You could cover this with something else instead of painting it, like paper, but I just prefer to have the painted edge and put a pattern there. We're going to leave the one black and one unpainted regular size, and we're going to cut this one down, just taking 1/4 of an inch off, just to leave room for it to swing and land around the same spot here, making the book look complete and not have it hang over the edge. So when I'm cutting, the ruler I use is actually this huge fabric ruler. It's more a matter of It's just easier to press it down and hold it in place to do the measuring. I can line it up, I can see through it. You can use a regular ruler and, you know, mark off the 1/2 inch and then draw a line across, and it would work the same way. This just works easier for me. And I use a regular box cutter. You could get fancy and use like a Dremel type thing, or I'm sure everybody has different gadgets at home, but this is just my way of doing it. I do draw the pencil line on anyway, even though I'm cutting it this way, just in case it slips offline. I can see that and line it back up again without much trouble. It does take a few passes. Usually, actually, I do this on the floor because I can put more pressure and cut it quicker. But for the sake of recording, maybe one more pass here. Let's make sure they're lined up same distance. All right. So next we're going to punch some holes. We want them to line up with the clips here. Now I've pre-measured it. It's kind of an odd measurement distance-wise because it's, I don't know if you can see here, each one of these squares is 1 inch. It's about 3 1/4 inches distance between the 2 pegs, which can make measuring a little bit weird, but we'll make it work. One of the things that I do to make life easier is I make a paper sort of cheat sheet and punch the holes so that I can use them to line things up later on. I found that putting the holes 1/4 inch in on the paper for measuring helps me keep from putting the holes in too far. If you see this, this one is out a little bit too far. This one's the right length. So when I go to turn it, it gets stuck right there. So we really want to make sure that they stay within that 1/4 inch. So when we go to put the holes in, all we have to do is line this up and draw our circles in for anything that we're going to cut a hole in. So to start off with, I've cut a bunch of these papers ahead of time. They're all 4.5 by 3.5. So if we're gonna make a sort of stencil for our holes, we want to center it as best we can on the board. So you have your center point here. And since it's a weird measurement, we need it to be 3 1/4 inches. So we're gonna go 1.5 plus 1/2, and then 1.5 plus 1/2, and that's where we're gonna line them up. I don't know if you can see those lines on there, but then this gives us 1/4 inch on the side. So we can use these dots to help make sure we stay in that 1/4 inch distance from the edge of the paper. Now for some people it might work easier to use a regular ruler. For me, I like the dots being all around the whole thing, so it helps me center things. Now I'm going to take a punch and I'm going to do my best with my shaky middle-aged hands to punch a hole equal distance from the edge using those dots as a guide. So this becomes my little cheat. Now the rest of these, I don't have to worry about this. I won't need this measuring tool anymore. I can then take it on any of these and draw the holes in and do all of them, and then go back and punch all of the holes. So we'll get a couple of these set up here. These aren't all the same size. Now these pages were prepped ahead of time, but I'll show you kind of how I can quickly get some. These are just kind of the background of the page, because we put so much stuff on the pages when you're junk journaling that it's really only going to show around the edges of all of the other things that we put on it. So let me punch these real quick and then I'll show you. I usually save like packaging material, or I can rip up cardboard, use the corrugated part in the middle of the cardboard. You can get stencils. I have a million because I'm a craft hoarder. Stamps work too if you get sort of like an overall use stamp instead of something that's so specific that it only works for certain themes. So like I have a lot of writing stamps. So you'll see in this one I used a cursive writing stamp just kind of haphazardly on the paper, and I do multiple sheets really at a time. So in this case I used a stamp that has cursive and did different stamps in different directions, and then used just regular bubble tape, paint the paint on, and then stick it on there with my hand. This type of packing also works well. It's a little bit more dense of a color. So on the back of the book, where I added color to the back, that's from this right here. So it gives a different kind of texture. So you don't have to own a lot of tools to be able to make these books happen. You can just work with what you've got. All right, so the other thing I want to do is I like to add pockets. A real simple way to add a pocket to something like this is to cut a double length of the same width. So it's 3.5 across. It has a little bit of fringe from ripping it out, but I just did the full width. So if you look at, like, it's just 8.5 inch paper length, but it's just folded in half. Now I usually like take a sewing machine or something and stitch something fancy on there. If you don't have something like that, you can use a glue like fabric tack or glitter glue, and you just want to make sure that you use a thinner tip. This is probably a little bit too big, but here, let me get this out of here. And you just put glue along the two sides. Think of like if you were stitching a pocket where you would want to sew, except you're using the glue. And fabric tack is really strong. It can take a lot of abuse once you've let it dry, and it doesn't take long to dry either. Glitter glue dries even faster, and it is an amazing glue. There's also a newer glue called 3-in-1, and it's by the same company. So this Beacon company, they make multiple types of really solid glue that you can use for a lot of materials. Glitter glue does not work on fabric, so I don't have it out today because we are going to be working with fabric. So now we have a little pocket. If I want to make it easier to get into the pocket, then I should have at a time punched a hole actually before this dries. Can I do it? Separate it. We're gonna go back here and you can punch a half circle on the top, and it just gives a tab to be able to reach in and get something if it falls too deep into the pocket. See, I still had time to re-glue that without having to put new glue down. Glitter glue would not have that kind of forgiveness. So now with this, I can take a tag of some sort and put it into that pocket and still be able to reach in and grab it if it goes in too deep. All right, so we have our basic pages done. And with this, we're gonna punch some holes into this pocket, so this one is ready also. Draw our circles on. And we're gonna punch them out. Sorry if I start to lose my voice. This is the time of year I have allergies that just make it a daily battle to talk every morning. All right, so we have pages. Now we need to do the same with this wood. And this is why I love this thinner wood that you can buy at the store. I mean, at like Michael's or whatever, it's already pre-cut. You could use cardboard, you could use, I mean, if it's thick enough to really give you that board feeling, or, you know, you can glue multiple ones together, but just be mindful that you cut the circles before you make it too dense, just to be able to fit it into your punch. But see how it just punches so well. It's a light wood, you're not fighting against it. You can also use board books, like kids' board books, and take them apart. You can use the wood or the pressed board from there. All right, so we have our cover started. One of the things I do, it's not necessary, you don't have to, but because I want it to be a finished product, so I sand down these corners here so that no one's gonna get snagged on it. All right. Now, to measure out where we're going to put it on the bigger board, okay. All right, now moving on, we're going to attach the ring binder to the painted piece of wood that we made. But the way to line it up so that it fits for sure is we're going to put the cover on and make sure that it will line up when it closes. We want to make sure that this edge here lines up to look like a book when it opens up. Once we have that, then we can adjust, make sure that it's evenly laid out on the board. And we're going to do the same thing we did with the paper. We're going to draw a circle where there's a hole, and we're going to punch our holes in right there. Can you see those? All right, same thing. We're going to use our punch, find the circle, and punch it out. Now there's a couple different ways you can secure this. I used you can use these and punch them into the holes permanently. But it can be hard because it's a little bit deep. Or you can use brads, and we're going to use brads today because when I did the other book, I used the other style, and it just was a little bit too deep, so it didn't feel as secure as I want it to be. So in this case, we're just making sure the brads can fit in the hole, and depending on what brand you have for the binder ring, you're going to want to do the same thing. Make sure that it fits in the hole there. There are so many different sizes for all of these things. So this is the largest brad that you can just buy sort of over the counter without getting into the fancy stuff. There are bigger ones if you get into buying fancy decorative ones. Like this is a brad, but it's too big to fit in that hole, so we're going to use regular silver. So you're just going to line up the holes on your board and your ring binder. It's a little awkward here. Put the brad in, and then we're going to bend it, and just be aware of where you bend it, that it's not sticking out past the wood. We don't want it to come out and mess up the fabric later. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. And even though a brad is just a regular office supply kind of thing, it really does make it look like a finished product. I mean, look at that, it's beautiful. Now, of course, the back is not great, so we're going to glue it to another piece of wood to secure it so that those brads can't come out. But first we need to cover these boards with some material. All right, so I pre-cut some material. I went 1 inch bigger than the board so that I have room to bend it over the edges and glue it on. So this is 4 by 5. So I went 5 by 6. This is 5 by 5, so I went 6 by 6 with the material. Now the next part is we need to cut these corners off so there's less bulk. I have this little rolling tool here that really is a cheat for me for this kind of thing, because you don't have to really measure this part, you're just cutting the corner off. I'm going to do it for all the corners on the material. And it really just makes things seal up nice when you're folding things over. If you've already bound books before, you probably already know all this, but I'm going to go over it anyway just to be sure. Now, to put the material on the wood, you can use a couple different things. You can use Fabri-Tac by Beacon, or 3-in-1 would work also. Or you can use regular old wood glue that you might find in the garage. I don't have any nearby that I can grab, but it does work. That first book I did with wood glue because I ran out of Fabri-Tac, but now I have Fabri-Tac, so we're going to use this. So the first thing I do is bend in the corner by putting a little schmoots of glue in each corner. And you really want to rub it down so it's thinner on the wood so that it doesn't make a big wet spot with the material when you fold it over. So it sticks pretty well and it will harden up pretty quickly. So you want to just do this piece first and then put the rest of the glue on later, or it will dry before you ever get to it. All right, so we have our corners pressed. We can do one side at a time. Put your glue down in a line. Rub it down thinner, and then fold it over. And I'm going to turn it and And do the same thing again. It doesn't matter if you go over with the glue where you're not putting fabric, because you're going to glue another piece of wood to it, so you won't even see that. It's the beauty of junk journaling. You don't have to be precise. Except maybe with your measurements, or else that can be a mess, but all right, almost done here. All right, so now that it's all glued on, you can see this is the back. And when we're done with the other fabric thing, we're going to glue it on just like this. So you have your back and you have your clip, and that part will still show, but your brads won't show anymore. All right, let that dry for a minute and finish this one off. All right, same thing. We're going to do the corners first. Oops, a little crooked there. Oh, you know what? I need to make sure I have that right. So it's going to go like this. Just got to make sure it's going in the right direction. Okay. Now you can glue the glue on this side and stick it down also if you want to make sure that it has more support. Like I will go, just don't get it in your holes. And you want to make sure you rub it in really well so it doesn't put weird splotches into, it will make wet spots if it's too thick when you set it down on your material, but this can give it extra strength so it's less likely to shift on you if you glue this part down first. So you can see it's stuck here. Now since it's probably going to go over these holes, I think I might re-punch them through the material so I can find them later, because I don't want to go hunting for them. I always spin it because, especially with material, it makes sure that it's all the way punched through before I take it out, because finding it to line up again is difficult. All right, now we'll glue it on. So we'll do our corners first. Ooh. I might not have enough there. Collecting glue on my fingers here. We're still lined up. All right. Hopefully this will be enough of an edge here. Didn't line that up quite right, but can always make adjustments. We'll figure it out. Starting to stick to the fabric here. Got more glue on me than on the board. I don't usually record these like tutorials, but I'm getting ready to do a class and I wanted a reference for people to go back to. So it can be a little weird to talk to people who aren't in the room, but I guess I could pretend I'm talking to my cat, because I certainly do that a lot. All right, one more side, and we're probably gonna have to punch this again because it looks like it's gonna overlap. And I try not to put it in the holes themselves because it's just more junk you got to clear out of there later. So oh, those corners still worked. I'm so glad. It really didn't look like it was going to for a second there. All right, let's punch that out. I almost forgot, but we need to cut a paper to fit the back of this and repunch holes before we finish those holes off. So you can do it a couple different ways. You can trace around it and then cut on the inside of the line, or you can measure it out, and you want to be about a 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch smaller, because you do have the fabric, so you don't have to be right up to the line. So in this case, this one is about 3 3/4 wide and 4 3/4 long. And then I use just a corner punch to round the corners to fit the shape of the cover. Excuse me. Now we're going to be a little more liberal with the glue for this because it's paper. It's going to need more security here. So you can use wood glue for this also. It will work. Make sure you rub it in so it's very thin. And you may want to go around the edge. Sorry, I'm out of frame here, but you might want to go around the edge of your paper just to make sure that the very, very edge of it has enough glue to really stick and stay down. All right, here we go. After we give it a few seconds here to harden up, we're gonna punch those holes again. I know it seems redundant, but if you wait to punch them, it's harder to get through. There's just too many layers. So, oops, wrong side. I don't know if you've seen these before, but there's a small side and a bigger side. I don't have the millimeters memorized, but you want to go for the bigger side for what we're doing. The little ones just don't fit that ring binder. All right, now we just need to put the finishing touch on. We're going to make sure these fit in the holes before we go any further. And we use the tip of the crock, there's a little tooth in there. You want to put the tooth in the hole and then squeeze hard and pretend you don't have arthritis. Oh, I already put one in there. Oops. stick the tooth in, squeeze hard, double check that it finished it off on the other side. So see, beautiful. Now it'll go right on that binder. So we can double check our work here. And look at that, you have a cover. All right, so we'll set that aside. Now we need to glue these two pieces together. Wood glue can be used, fabric glue, or 3-in-1. I don't suggest glitter glue because of the fabric. You're going to want to go around the very edges to make sure that it doesn't start to flip up, that the fabric really needs to have a lot of glue on it to keep it solid. And then I just do a little bit of center stuff for extra stability, but the edges is the most important piece. Make sure there's a lot there, but it's also rubbed in so it doesn't come squirting out the side when you stick the two together. This is where you're going to need those clamps that I talked about, because really to get it to stay solid, you want to have it clamped down while it's drying. So we're going to line it up and then take clips right on the edge. Make sure the pressure is on the edge of the book. Come on, there we go. And now we're going to set that aside to dry. All right, so now for the decoration of your page, or your cover, excuse me. Here I put lace down, and then I tucked a photo underneath. So for example, if you wanted to do that style on this one, you could run some lace, glue it down with the Fabri-Tac, and then take a photo that seems to fit. Now these are miniature, they're very small photos, they're actual vintage photos, but you can get, I know Tim Holtz has the mini photos that you can buy. Once you have your lace in, you can tuck that in. But you want to find one that goes with your theme. These are all the ones that I have that kind of fit. This one's kind of a better color. I like a couple different layers of lace, so you could put some green and some black together and have a darker line. And then when you tuck one in, it's more dramatic. The other option is to go with something that's not a photo. I have an image from the material that I cut out and blinged up a little bit. And I think I'm going to go with this. So it just kind of highlights, it's the image that was already on there, and actually you can see on the back, it's the same image that's on the back. I just stitched around it, cut it, and then frayed the edges. And then this is just chunks of lace. Like I have this flowered lace that I just glued it on and then cut the edges off. So it just makes it pop a little bit more, but I think I want some lace underneath it to kind of give it more of a dramatic like pop. It doesn't have to be a lot, but it needs something. Maybe some black. Wonder if I could get it around the whole edge. Or, all right, I kind of did a hunt and I found some green fabric that really makes it pop more. So I'm gonna rough up the edges on this. I cut out all the trial and error. I'm a little finicky today. So I just use, this is a Tim Holtz, their scissors are their little mini scissors for doing fussy cutting, but they also are really great for shredding the edges of material and lace. They're super sharp though, so you gotta be careful you don't stab yourself. Alright, when I get the edges done here, I'm gonna go through and cut these longer pieces off. You can see this is the face side of this fabric. It's too bright though I really like the darker side. And I like it kind of being off and not being perfectly lined up. So what this means is we're gonna do a couple levels of gluing. The first thing I'm gonna do is glue this piece to the green paste because I want to make sure I get things lined up on the book. So we might have to do some trimming if it ends up being a little too wide. But we're going to spread this thin, same reason. You don't want it to leave big wet spots, so you really got to thin it out. And it'll get tacky pretty quickly as you do that. And then we're gonna kind of find the sweet spot. All right. Oh, it's gonna look so good. All right, now we're gonna do the full material, and I try to do along the edges and then just kind of a hodgepodge of the center because the edges will really keep it in place over time. It's especially with this kind of glue. So I spread it thin, wipe off all the excess in the center. When it starts to get tacky, then it's ready to stick down. All right. I have so much glue on my hands. All right. That turned out good. I'm gonna set this one aside so we can start putting the rest of this together. All right, so one of the things I like to do is I like to finish the holes on the pages also so they can take some abuse, because if you just throw pages in there with the holes punched, it's just not strong enough to when people are messy, and you're going to turn the pages so many times. So I like to take bundles. We're going to separate out the pocket because we're going to do more with that, but you can line up the holes, and if any of them are not quite right, this is your chance to do another hole. Make sure you don't have to put this many pages together, but for simplicity's sake today, we're just gonna do one signature and one pocket. All right, so we're finishing up these holes. Same as before, put the tooth in the hole, squeeze. These have a little safety lock, and sometimes it slides and then you find yourself stuck. I'm going to do these a little tighter. I don't like how loose they are, but there's a gentle balance between tightening them and accidentally snapping them. So all right, and then we have the pocket from before. And I'm actually going to secure a couple of pieces of paper with it, just to make it thick enough for here we go. I want to make sure to secure the holes so that it doesn't rip. This is a different style here where it has a front and a back. It has a little bit more of a finished touch to it. So we'll see if I can keep this in frame. All right, so you pop the mail into one side, and you want to go rounded down towards the paper with the back part, and you do the same thing. You put the tooth in the hole. It is a little bit more finicky because you really have to hold on to everything as you line it up. I think I'm gonna flip this the other way. Put the tooth in this side. Okay. And see, when it goes together, it has a more finished look, but there we go. So both sides have a rounded look then. I'm gonna do the other side here. My hands are just weaker today than usual. So it's a little harder to get these to secure the way I want to. Ooh, there we go. Didn't want to come off. Oh, and that one's split. Well, that's what I get for being impatient. All right. Now, our glue should be done. So we can unclip the back. If we want to put any kind of decoration here, now would be the time. I mean, you could do it ahead of time if you're really organized, but let's see. Do something similar to the other book, just for consistency here. How about we put some gold? Oops. Ooh. I need a better paintbrush. I usually keep some papers nearby, so when I need to change the texture on it, I can press it onto a piece of paper. It doesn't really go to waste then. Here's some other pages I'm working on for a different book, so we can kind of get rid of some. All right, my battery died in the middle of that and I didn't catch it, so let me just show you how that turned out. Added some color there on the back. I also started to work on a little tag to put inside, so we're just going to add it to one of these pages here. I think just right here on the front, just adding a little bit of bling. So when we assemble it, it'll look more complete. Just putting glue on the edges there. So it's just some simple stuff. You can always add like lace to the pages. That gives it a little bit more life. Let's do a little bit of that right now. I'll pick a different page in this signature and just run glue down the edge. And then this probably would be easier if I did it before I clipped everything together. So it adds a little bit of decoration to the edge. All right, so the back of our book is, oh, it's not quite dry. I do have a little heat gun thing, but we'll just use the time to add a little bit more to this book. I could put some pizzazz on our pocket here. Now with this, I think, let's see, is that a little too big? A little too big. I think I want to add that photo in somehow. Maybe we'll make it its own page. It's a pretty solid photo, so I think it could stand the test of time. So I'm going to put this on, add a little bit of jazz to it. I'll set that aside to dry. And then I'll put this paint out of my way so I don't knock it over. All right, so this woman, I really want her to be in the book. She just has the character to fit this book. So I think I'm going to use this as a template here to draw some holes on here. I'm gonna punch holes again. Ooh. You can probably hear my little cat friend crying in the background now. I think he's gone too long without attention. Alright, so I have some fancier little clips here to put in those holes. Just gotta dig them out. There we go. I like these little flower ones, but so it has two sides to it. They're more narrow, so they don't fit everything, but for one picture it will be perfect. We're gonna put the flower on her side. And this is an old photo postcard they used to, oops. So we're gonna put the rounded edge and push them together. So when we clamp it, it'll round that off and it just makes it look so pretty. All right, let's see. There Do the same thing on this side. There, beautiful. That'll add a lot of character to the book. All right. Okay, so we have our back. We have our signatures. And pop in here. We'll put her in the front. And then we put our cover in. There! And we have our finished book. The fun thing about these is you can keep adding to them later once they're bound. Putting in new signatures. Beautiful. And here's the final book. We have the cover, our vintage lady, and our signatures with pockets. A very simple way to put together a book that you can keep adding to. All right, well, thank you for joining me, and good luck on your artistic adventure.